Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, cha, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. This is Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, legendary neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in this mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, CastBox, Player FM, Audible. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. One of the reasons we think this may be your favorite show is because we have some amazing guests, and today is no exception. Tara Hannon will be joining us to celebrate her Only Ghost series. 2 books in the series so far, The Only Ghost at School and The Only Ghost at Summer Camp. And later in this show, Dr. Sheila Kanani will be joining us to celebrate Their Rainbows in Space. Before we invite Tara into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Zevo Life. Want to really bring the magic the next time you're reading to your kids? Meet Zevo Life, the better microalgae that gives your body the clean, powerful fuel it craves. Zevo Life is a nutrient-dense superfood packed with 50% plant protein, fiber, essential fatty acids, and antioxidants. Just 1 teaspoon a day supports your gut, boosts your energy, and even promotes healthier skin and hair. It's perfect for parents, educators, and storytellers who want to stay energized, focused, and vibrant. So the next time you roar like a dinosaur or meow like a magical cat, you'll have the zip to do it with flair. Please go to zevo.life, that's ZIVO.life. Use the promo code READ and get 30% off your order today. It's sustainable, it's clean, and it's backed by a 30-day risk-free guarantee. Zevo Life, because storytime deserves your best self. Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Before we invite our guests into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Joining us right now from the beautiful state of Maryland, our guest is here today to celebrate her beautiful chapter book series. They're called The Only Ghost at School and The Only Ghost at Summer Camp. Please welcome to the show, Tara Hannon. Hey, Tara, how are you?
Hi, I'm so good. I'm glad to be here.
I'm delighted that you are on a chapter book series. tell us what's the difference between a picture book, a chapter book, and a middle grade novel.
Oh, what is the difference? Okay, so a picture book is going to have a lot of pictures. Every spread is going to be heavy pictures, sometimes a little heavier on text, sometimes lighter, but the amount of words is very limited, heavier on pictures. A chapter book, I'm kind of learning that there's a range in chapter books. Some chapter books do have a lot more blocks of text. For Ghosty, The Only Ghost in School, I kind of call it a marriage between a picture book and a chapter book because we're very heavy on the art and it's also color. So we're kind of bridging in between a picture book and a chapter book in my mind. But yeah, a chapter book's going to have a lot more words. It's going to introduce a reader to middle grade, which has way less pictures. There's a lot less space in between the lettering and the lines of the text in a middle grade versus a chapter book. So this kind of helps. A chapter book has a larger text and it helps the child who's independently reading kind of track those lines and read along.
Yeah. So your books are probably some of the first books that a lot of kids are going to read independently.
I hope so. It's it is a challenge when so I started as a picture book creator. Ironically, I don't have a picture book published, but that's where I started, kind of trying to get into the industry. And so you can kind of use whatever words you want when you're writing books that adults are going to read to their children. But when you're writing books that a child is going to read independently, especially an emerging reader, you really have to pick your words intentionally. And that was kind of a fun puzzle because I like to use big words, and I was really sort of like hitting up my thesaurus a lot and figuring out what the best option is for an emerging reader. So it's kind of fun.
That was one of the things I've learned so much doing this podcast over the last 8 years. And I kind of like knew instinctively that, picture books are meant to be read by parents. But it wasn't until an author told me, it was like, oh, you can have some really big words in picture books because it's the adult's going to read it to the kid and they can explain it to the kid. So and I love that picture books are meant to be read together because that's why I launched the podcast, because I know the relationship I have with my now adult kids was based on reading together, reading with them every night for 20 minutes, half an hour a night.
Right. Like 3 books, 8 books. It just kind of snowballs sometimes.
You have time for one book and to 10.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about this only ghost. Is it the same ghost at school and at camp?
It is Ghosty. Ghosty is, I'll refer to him often. He just kind of lives in my head as something real that just kind of, he's rent free in my head all the time. But so Ghosty, he grew up in Scareville where there were witches and werewolves and vampires and ghosts. And so he had no issues fitting in among the ghouls at Scareville. And one day, his parents sort of announced that they're moving to Smithville, which is a human town. And Ghosty is absolutely horrified by this news because he knows that humans are scared of ghosts. And so Ghosty has an awareness that this is going to be a hard transition for him and probably the humans that he's encountering. But his parents are very enthusiastic about humans. They have this like fascination with humans. And I think Ghosty's mom, they're moving because Ghosty's mom gets a job. I think I called it a human relations ghoul. So like she's going to be like sort of bridging the gap between ghosts and humans. So there's tension between Ghosty and his family because Ghosty kind of feels very misunderstood by his parents. He feels a lot of trepidation and his parents are just over the moon excited. And so then Ghosty has his first day of school and it is a catastrophe. He scares some people. He kind of doesn't do it right or as he sort of envisioned the day should go. And so, that's kind of where we start. And then we kind of watch Ghosty figure out how to be himself in a school that is scared of him.
I love it. I love it. I'm just imagining how much fun my son would have had reading this book on his own.
Okay, so that's my hope. What I did when I went through it is I wrote it all as just a regular story about the ghost and what happens to him. And then I went through almost like a puzzle, and I tried to put in every funny joke or pun that could possibly be created, and there's so many. So I feel like when I read it with my kids, I have two daughters, and one is 11 and one is 7. So the 7-year-old is like the perfect age right now. She's an emerging reader, and I was reading it out loud to them, and they were like giggling. I was just feeling like I had like these little tiny wins, because that's what I was really hoping, that like the storyline could pull them through, but they could also really enjoy the humor in, the sort of slapstick and punny situations that Ghosty gets in.
Well, kids certainly love slapstick. It's, and I do too. I'm wondering, the puns that you're using and the jokes, did you use the classic one? Why did the ghost, why didn't the ghost go to the dance?
Because he had no body to go with.
There you go.
I don't think so, but
Look, the next.
But I should have. That's what I mean. There's so many options.
There really are. There was something there. I can't remember it right now. I'm not going to try, but there was another one that I loved. Why didn't the ghost eat something? And yeah, but there are so many of those great. And I think it kind of goes back to, we've had a lot of spooky middle grade authors on the show, and it's fascinating that kids love to be scared. And so on the one hand, the idea of meeting a ghost, it's scary, but I definitely, like I said, my son would have loved this book. My daughter would have loved this book. I would have loved this book as a kid.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope the kids do love it. And ironically, this is not a scary book. So it's kind of like a little flip on the genre, I guess, of ghosts, because Ghosty is more human than any of the other characters. He really goes through some human experiences of really feeling like he's doesn't have a place to belong, and I really kind of was trying to immerse myself in the theme of like what is fitting in versus belonging. And we always say we want to fit in, but do we really want to fit in? Because if we're fitting in, that means we're actually changing who we are and what we are to sort of fit into expectations. And then we kind of don't feel ourselves. So I kind of like Ghosty's journey to find belonging.
I love that. I think that's a super important thing to talk to our kids about, the difference between fitting in and belonging, and which do we really want.
Yeah. And I've got a daughter who's going into middle school right now. And I feel like it really ramps up at that age where you're just kind of, observing your peers. And a lot of us are kind of like living outside of our body and looking at the environment and trying to decide where we want to be in that environment. And Ghosty does that too. And I feel like, Ghosty finds a friend that appreciate some of the oddities of Ghosty, and he kind of like sort of regrounds himself and is able to sort of just appreciate that relationship, and then that kind of builds the strength to create other relationships that feel a lot safer too. So you made me think that this is kind of fitting in versus belonging. I think that's something that kids have had to deal with forever. But now imagine how much harder it is now when kids are bombarded by images they see on screens of what they're supposed to do, and how a lot of these kids don't realize that what they're seeing on the screens isn't really real. It's a lot of effort that goes into making somebody's life look perfect. Yeah, and like fake rules that are kind of just like created in the stratosphere that it takes a lot of personal self-awareness to realize that those are just arbitrary.
Mhm.
And sometimes the coolest people are super weird and different.
All of my friends are weird, and I think they would be complimented by that.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, you mentioned rules,
Mhm.
and back when, especially when my daughter got into the chapter book age, I didn't like chapter books because for me it was like, okay, chapter books, they're supposed to read by themselves. That means I can't read with them anymore. And I was, as we say here in Boston, I was wicked bummed out until my daughter's second grade teacher came up to me and said, "You have to keep reading to her." And I goes, "Yeah,
Tell me
cool.
more.
Give it out. I can show it to my wife."
Yeah, I want to do the same thing. I love the world of Kidlit, and I hope as long as my kids enjoy it, I can read with them. And I mean, I kind of am digging the story of Ghosty and the fun puns, and I'm hoping that like if adults are reading along that they'll get some chuckles out of, the silly things that I'm writing about and whatnot.
Now, how do you imagine Ghosty's voice for the parent who wants to read along and do the voices and everything?
That's a good question because I didn't know. And then Penguin was like, we're picking voices for the audiobook. And
Ooh.
so that was exciting. A first time for me. And so they sent some samples and it was really fun because I don't know, sometimes you just never pose the question to yourself. I knew the tone, like I knew how Ghosty's kind of inflections and attitude would be, but I never heard him. And so picking the audio narrator was like more fun than I thought it would be because I could like really kind of sit in his character and be like, would he be whiny like that? Or would he be a little more peppy? And so I think the person that they picked is a perfect fit. So I don't know. Maybe listen to the audiobook. But he is kind of like, he's going through a hard time. So what I didn't want him to be was whiny. I wanted him to be a little empowered and disappointed, with how his experiences, kept failing and stuff. And so I think that is where his voice kind of sits in a happy space. Yeah.
One of the things that I ask authors, did they have a hard time with the idea of handing their manuscript over to an illustrator and allowing somebody else to tell part of their story? Since you're the author and illustrator of this book, I can't ask you that question, but I can ask you, that narrator is going to be putting his or her spin on your story. Was it kind of difficult to say, okay, narrator, go for it with my story that I love and I work so hard on?
I feel like yes and no. So I think like I have so much trust in the process that like, they ask me some questions, do you want us to run these things by you? And my answer was like, actually, I feel like you guys know more about audiobooks than I do. So I actually would default to your choices anyway. So I'm good with all of that. I think it will be weird to hear the whole audio book read because even when I'm reading an actual book and then I hear like a book that I didn't read or write and I hear it on audio, I'm like, oh, I didn't think the inflection would be there. I thought it would be high, so I'm 100% sure that's going to happen when I listen to the full audio, but, I think it'll be okay.
I think so too. I think so too.
Good.
One of the things I just listened to an audiobook. Growing up in Boston, I loved the J. Giles band. I think I saw them live 15 or 16 times, something ridiculous. And the lead singer Peter Wolf just came out with his memoir, and he did the narration for the audiobook, and it drove me crazy because he would pronounce the word film as film sometimes, and then film other times. And it would just drive me like, dude, pick one and land on it. I'm not crazy about film, but if you're going to use it, just use it all the time.
Okay. Yeah. That stuff would stick out to me too. Yeah, I think there are, like, if they had said, do you want to narrate the audio? I probably would have said no. Like, so, beggars can't be choosers. I gotta really relinquish some control, but, yeah, it'll be fun to kind of see where we differ in how we visualize, audiolize.
Yeah. So, is it so there's two books now, Friendly, the Only Ghosts at School and The Only Ghosts at Summer Camp. Are there, the challenges Ghosty facing at summer camps very similar to the challenges he faces at school?
Okay, so I would say similar themes, but the arc is very different, because at this point, Ghosty has a best friend. He's for the second book, he has a best friend. His name is Tate. He's a human, and they're very excited to go to summer camp together. This is a very human milestone, according to Ghosty's dad, and they're all very excited. And Ghosty shows up at summer camp, and they have a camp counselor named Steve. And where this differs is nobody's afraid of Ghosty in the beginning, because he's kind of like become someone in the community, but Ghosty's still struggling with stereotypes and things that people, sort of assumptions that they make. And so Steve tells a ghost story at the campfire at night, and it's very scary. Like, Steve is very dramatic, and he's got flashlights, and everybody, including Tate, is now scared of ghosts. And so Ghosty is really despondent. He's calling his parents and saying, I'd like to leave. I don't feel like, this doesn't feel good anymore. And so his parents, they come, but the timing just so happens that Steve has gotten sick, and he needs to tap out, and he needs some adults to tap in to help with the camp. And so Ghosty's parents are called on to help with the camp. So now there's an entire camp full of kids that are scared of ghosts, and their counselors are now ghosts. But Ghosty's parents are so oblivious and kind of silly and love everything that's happening that they really like grease the wheel of like helping these kids navigate like what their expectations are versus what is actually happening. And so they end up sort of solving this problem organically without even being aware that there is a problem. And so Ghosty's parents play a bigger role in this one, I think. And it ends up being kind of fun. And at the end, everyone's like, what was the problem anyway?
Tara, I before I got into performing, I worked in human services, and I worked in the juvenile justice system here in Massachusetts, and I worked at a detention center down in Cape Cod, and it was unusual because we didn't have any fences, there were no locks, and there were no bars in the windows, and it had been a summer camp on a pond in the woods, and no one ever tried to run away. No one ever tried to leave, because the pond that we were on, the legit name of the pond was Bloody Pond. And it was one of these ponds on Cape Cod that's filled with iron, so the water is...
Oh, it was red, orangish, yeah.
Yes. And so we would just, as the kids came into the detention center, we would just say, "Oh, here we take them on a tour, and this is Bloody Pond, and the water's red because the Indians who lived here many years ago were massacred, and their ghosts walk around the camp at night, but." You'll be inside, so you don't have to worry about them. And all these city kids would not go out at night at all.
No. Well, that's the power of story, right? You could tell anyone anything, and if they believe it, that's living in their head as facts. Mm-hmm. So it can really change your experience on things for sure.
Awesome. Are you planning a third and a fourth book? Is Ghosty going to see the big screen in some way, maybe?
If I'm lucky, I would love that. Right now, we just have the 2, and I would love to do more. I have 1,000 ideas, and I kind of think Ghosty is the kind of character that he could be anywhere. He could and I'd love to take Tate into Scareville and see how Tate feels about meeting all of Ghosty's friends, and so who knows what'll happen, but it's a good world. It's fleshed out in my head, so maybe we'll get there.
Excellent. Well, in the meantime, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Ghosty and the Only Ghost at School, and also find out more about you.
Okay. Well, my website is just my name, TaraJHannon.com. There's lots to discover there. And the book is published with Penguin Workshop. So it is up on Penguin's website, and anywhere good books are sold, we've got Ghosty up online coming August 12th.
Awesome. And we should tell everybody that, we love when, people go into a library and say, "Hey, do you have the Only Ghost at School on your shelves?" And if they say no, it's like, "Well, could you get it here, please?"
It's always a good way to help an author get their books out and get their stories told.
Had a great time speaking to the author of The Only Ghost at School and The Only Ghost at Summer Camp. Our guest has been Tara Hannon. Tara, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun meeting you. Thank you.
Hey, my friends, I have a super idea you are going to love. How about this weekend, turn your backyard cookout into a storybook celebration? Fire up the grill, crack open a few of your favorite picture books, and serve up Big Fork Brand's legendary bacon sausage. Made with nitrate-free bacon and premium pork, it's juicy, smoky, and unforgettable. Top it off with Big Fork's spicy Chicago fire sauce, and you've got a meal as bold as the characters in your favorite bedtime tale. Get 20% off your order using the promo code READ at bigforkbrands.com. That's bigforkbrands.com. Promo code READ to get 20% off, because nothing brings families together like great food, great books, and a whole lot of flavor. Big Fork Brands. Read, grill, repeat. Hey, my friends, you know one of my favorite parts of the day is story time. There's just something magical about snuggling up with your kids, opening a great book, and escaping into an adventure together. And let me tell you, that moment becomes even more magical when you're curled up in the softest, coziest bedding you've ever felt. That's why I'm so excited that CozyEarth.com is supporting Reading with Your Kids. Their bamboo sheets, comforters, and pajamas are unbelievably soft, naturally breathable, and temperature regulating, which means no more sweaty nights or chilly toes. Right now, Cozy Earth is offering Reading with Your Kids listeners an unbelievable and exclusive 41% off their entire site. That's right, you heard me right, 41% off. So go ahead, create your own cozy reading nook, wrap yourself and your kids up in something comfy, grab your favorite bedtime book, and turn story time into the best part of your day. Head on over to CozyEarth.com and use the promo code READ at checkout to save 41%. That's CozyEarth.com, promo code READ. Join us right now from the United Kingdom. Our guest is here today to celebrate her nonfiction children's book. It's called Are There Rainbows in Space? I can't wait to know the answer. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Sheila Kanani. Hey, Dr. Sheila, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really well, thank you. Hope you are well too.
I am well, and I am so curious to learn if there are rainbows in space.
Well, you're going to have to get the book and read it to
Oh,
find out. No, it does. It does. There is a big reveal at the end. The last chapter or the last few chapters are all about light and color in space, but we do go through the process of making rainbows, and then we talk about the fact that you need some sort of sunlight and some sort of rain, whether that's water rain or other rain. It can be, you can use those two things to make rainbows. So there's a moon of Saturn called Titan, and it's got rivers and lakes and potentially a sort of a water cycle, but instead of it being liquid water, it's liquid methane, which is a gas on the Earth. But the liquid methane could potentially cause methane rainbows on Titan. So yes, we do believe you can get rainbows in space.
neat. Now, I understand that you have a great love of Saturn. In fact, someone told me that you're Saturn Sheila on Instagram.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So when I was a bit younger, I was a planetary scientist before I became a children's author. And I was using the Cassini spacecraft, which was built in the 1990s to study the planet Saturn, its rings and its moons. And I have become besotted with Saturn and the Saturn environment ever since.
Now, when you said you were using this spaceship, were you actually with the joystick making it maneuver and everything?
No, unfortunately not. So I was part of one of the instrument teams, and there were 12 big instruments bolted onto the side of the spacecraft. And I was part of one of the instrument teams to find out more about the environment around Saturn and how the sun interacts with Saturn and how that all sort of works together. And there were 12 instruments, so there were 12 instrument teams dotted across the globe. And we all worked together to find out as much as we possibly could about the planet and its rings and its moons over the almost 14 years of time that Cassini was actually orbiting Saturn.
Wow. That must have been so exciting, not only to be, you know, working on the instruments on this vehicle that's orbiting Saturn, but just working with teams of people all around the world.
Absolutely. And it was a really revolutionary mission because it was so global and so international. And of the of the 12 instruments, six of them were sort of principal investigators were women. So it was a really kind of diverse and global team. And it meant that I got to travel lots as well, including coming to the USA as well at some points in my career.
Now, I'm learning that inspiring kids, and especially young girls, to get interested in the STEM fields is a big passion of yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was really lucky growing up. I came from a very high science capital family. My parents were pharmacists, medical pharmacists. My sister's a doctor, a medical doctor. So we were always sort of introduced to sciencey concepts and taken to science museums and all of those sorts of things. I also went to a girls' school up until the age of 18. So I never really appreciated the kind of idea that science and physics was not for me. But there is a kind of narrative there, which isn't true. Science is for everyone. And it wasn't until I got to university that I realized that I was in the minority, and that there weren't that many girls studying physics. And it kind of became a thing that I became an ally and talked a lot about women in physics and tried to find those hidden figures in our field and, you know, really advocate for physics and science and astronomy being for anyone and for everyone.
Well, hopefully that situation is getting better. Although my wonderful niece is now studying biomedical engineering at university, and she's like, I think, one of two women that are in that field.
Okay. Yeah. It's a tricky one because if you can't see it, you don't want to be it. And there's not that many role models, but without the role models, we can't get more people into it. So it's a bit of a vicious circle, but it is getting better, just very, very slowly.
So tell us, what else are we going to learn in Are There Rainbows in Space?
So rainbows is part one of a 3-part series at the moment. Can you get rainbows in, well, are there rainbows in space in America? Then the other 2 books are called Are There Jellyfish in Space and Can You Get Music on the Moon? So rainbows is about light and colour in science and nature. So we talk about how we see the different parts of the visible spectrum, but also parts of the other, or the rest of the spectrum. So the X-rays and infrared and glow in the dark and bioluminescence and all of those sorts of things. And then we travel outwards. So we talk about colour on Earth, but then up in the atmosphere and then up into space as well. So it's a real journey and a celebration of light and colour across our universe, really. And then Can You Get Music on the Moon, which is the new one in the UK, talks about sound in the same way. So light and colour, and then sound is the next one. So hopefully that will come to the US at some point as well.
Yeah. Neat. So how does color work?
It's well, it sort of depends on whether you mean how do we see using our eyes, or how does reflections work and things like that. But we also talk about different colours in nature and animals as well. So like human eyes see differently to other animals, and that means we can see the visible spectrum. So light comes from the sun and is reflected off other objects. So there's not that many objects actually that make their own light. So for example, when you look at the moon isn't making its own light, it's actually reflecting light from the sun. And the light comes from the sun and goes into our eyes, and you should never look directly at the sun. That's very, very dangerous for our eyes. And then the different wavelengths we're able to see depending on how much the light is scattered. So like red light and blue light are scattered in different amounts. So different amounts of red light and blue light come into our eyes, and that's how we see the different colours. And then the eyeball and the retina and the rods and the cones do all sorts of amazing things to send the right signals to our brains, and then our brains transfer those signals into seeing the different colours. It's a really, really clever system. We talk about computers and AI and all of this amazing stuff that's out there now, but the human body is really quite incredible.
It really is. And boy, the more, I'm almost 100 years old, and I'm still always amazed at things. And I'm one of those guys, anytime I'm having some sort of procedure done, I want to stay awake so I can watch and I can learn.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, there's so much different things in nature as well. So different animals can see different wavelengths, and, there are snakes that can see infrared so that they can hunt at night. And, there's all those amazing creatures under the sea that can give off their own light and bioluminescence and all of that. And it really fascinates me. And that's why I love writing children's books, because actually children's books are for everyone. They're not just for children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, if I was going to tackle and try to learn a new science, I would pick up a children's book first. Absolutely. And I've learned so much in becoming a children's author as well. Yeah, yeah. So talk about that journey from a physicist, a scientist, to becoming a children's author. What inspired you to make that shift in your career? I think it kind of happened serendipitously, also maybe organically. But looking back at even when I was as young as 9, I've always been interested in storytelling, communicating and writing. Like I've kept a journal and a diary since I was very young. But while I was working on the Cassini mission, I realised that I loved the science and what the research was telling us, but actually it was the stories behind all of that really fascinated me. So the human stories and the career paths of people, but also the history and the science history. And I love telling people about it, and I love talking, in case you haven't noticed already. So during my PhD and my time as a planetary scientist, I started to kind of question if that was the role for me. And I thought actually maybe science communication, outreach and engagement was actually where I wanted to be. So somebody said to me, if you're interested in engaging people, talking about science,
have you thought about teaching? So I went and became a secondary school teacher in the UK for a few years, which was brilliant. I loved being with the children, but I did miss space a lot. Like there's not that much space topics on the UK curriculum. So then after that, I worked for the Royal Astronomical Society, which is a learned society just over 200 years old, a membership organisation for people in the space industry in the UK and internationally, but most of the members are in the UK. And with the RAS, I was covering education, outreach and diversity. So I was teaching, but I was also going into schools, and I was doing some sort of like keynote lectures and festivals and a little bit of press and media. And it was during one of these talks for a festival, well, just after actually, I came down off the stage and I was sort of doing Q&A with some people in the audience. And a lady came up to me and she said, have you ever thought about writing books? You know, I really like the way that you talk. Have you ever thought about putting that down on paper? And she was a literary agent, and they're the literary agency that I'm still with today. So it wasn't something that I thought of, but somebody came up to me and said, "Had you thought about trying this?" And that's a talent agency that I'm, like I said, still working with. But I think initially they thought maybe I'd write adult nonfiction. But I think I fell into children's nonfiction because of my connection with young people and teaching and going into schools. And actually, I do have one adult nonfiction book coming out next month, but all the other books I've written have been for children, and I really love that as well.
That's very, very cool. I love that you were kind of recruited. Somebody,
yeah.
You know, we hear the stories about someone goes to Hollywood and someone just finds them on the street and turns them into a star, and that's kind of what happened to you.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's just been such a fantastic journey. You know, someone pointed out to me recently that 10 years ago now, I hadn't even sort of been recruited, let alone written any books. And now we've got books all over the world, and Rainbow's recently won an award in the UK, and it's just mind-blowing really how it's sort of exploded, and I'm so excited by it all.
Yeah, that's very cool. Now, one of the things I noticed is that Are There Rainbows in Space has a different title in the UK.
Yes.
What's going on with that? We speak the same language.
I know, I'm not sure. So in the UK, it's called Can You Get Rainbows in Space? And the series is called Can You Get? So Can You Get Jellyfish in Space? Can You Get Music on the Moon? And I don't actually know. You have to bring that up with the publishers. I okayed the change, but I don't understand why it happened.
Hey, you know, when I was preparing for the interview, I was on your website, and in one spot in the website, it says that I should ask you about RAS 2001.
Oh, yeah. So when I was working for the Royal Astronomical Society, the year 2020 was the bicentenary of the organisation. So we had huge plans. Obviously, all of those plans were scuppered because of the pandemic. But one of the projects that I was working on was this project that you mentioned. And what we were doing, it was a grants fund. We had people applying for money. We had £1 million to kind of hand out to grassroots astronomy and geophysics projects. So I ended up working with 12 charities in the UK, doing astronomy with them, with audiences that had never encountered or never thought that they should encounter astronomy previously. So I was working with young girls, I was working with children with mental health challenges or learning challenges. I was working with people with autism and prison inmates and really different audiences, but really bringing astronomy to them. And it was so fantastic and eye-opening and challenging and wonderful. But what we found was that astronomy isn't just about the physics and the maths, but actually, again, the human connections and the personal stories. And we were having people coming and saying to us things like, it has changed my mental health and I feel better in my well-being. I feel more self-confident because of astronomy, and those kinds of outcomes that we just really didn't expect to get. For example, I went into a prison in London, and it was a men's prison, and I was supposed to teach them about astronomy. And one of the men first said to me, I don't know why you're telling us about astronomy. I can't see the sky from my cell. And it was during or just after the pandemic when they had 23 out of 24 hours a day of lockdown. You know, we thought lockdown was bad for us, but imagine being in a prison cell at the time as well. And by the end of the session, he was like, oh, you've really opened my eyes to something different. And yeah, I know I kind of judged it at the beginning, but you've shown me that there's other things out there. And now when my son comes to visit me, I've got something to talk to him about. And that was just really nice. Like, I felt like I had a bit of an impact on somebody in a way that they hadn't imagined, and in a way that I hadn't imagined either. So it was a really cool project to be part of, and it was really great working with those different groups of people and changing their minds about astronomy.
Yeah. You seem to have an incredible, a superpower of being able to take these complex scientific thoughts or knowledge and kind of making it more digestible and accessible for kids. What kind of advice would you have for teachers and parents who want to do this when they're encountering science to make it more understandable for their kids?
Absolutely. It's an interesting one because I guess I've had that teacher training and been taught how to kind of break it down into chunks and things. But some of the stuff that I've come across is that children ask questions and they're not shy about asking questions. And I think adults should be that way as well. There's no such thing as a silly question. So, you know, ask and don't be shy. But from a parent or a teacher point of view, don't talk down to the young people. They might be 10 years old, but they're still so clever and so inquisitive. And if we can talk to them and explain things to them using the correct terminology, but not like all the acronyms and stuff, you know, take out the junk and take out the rubbish, but talk to them like they're a human being rather than talking down to them. I think that works really well because the young people appreciate that as well. And then you'll kind of have a conversation rather than you talking at them, which I think works really nicely.
I agree. And I love that you suggest that we use the scientific terms, because, you know, there are 3 and 4-year-olds out there who can, you know, recite back to you all the names of the different dinosaurs that there are. And if they can pick up on that pretty easy and usually by themselves, I think they can handle some scientific terms.
Yeah, I think they can. And I mean, yeah, I have a 4-year-old and he knows all the names of all the dinosaurs and can say them all fluently. So yeah, we shouldn't assume that they can't do it when they absolutely can.
One of the first questions that you ask in the book is, what color are polar bears under all their fur? Can you reveal?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of interesting, colourful facts about animals. We looked at the polar bears. You know, you'd assume that they're white because of their fur, their big, thick fur, but actually each strand of fur is hollow. It's a hollow cylinder, and it's built that way to trap the heat and keep polar bears warm in the snowy environment. But actually, if you were to shave a polar bear down to its skin, they're black. They're black at the bottom. We also ask questions like, are zebras black with white stripes or white with black stripes? And we talk about hippos sweating red rather than like a clear substance. The animal kingdom is so colourful and so fantastic. There's so many facts in the book about animals.
Wow. Hippos sweat red. That's mind-blowing.
It is. It's really interesting. So we obviously sweat water. And the reason that we do that is to let the water evaporate from the surface of our skin and cool us down. But hippos sweat to release a sort of sunscreen, and this substance that they secrete it works exactly like sunscreen, and it protects their skin from the sun instead of evaporating to cool them down. So the substance that they secrete is a kind of a pinky red colour. So they're not bleeding or anything like that. They're not sweating water, but this secretion helps protect them from the sun.
Well, you know, I could use some of that because I'm always forgetting to put sunscreen on before I go outside.
Yeah, and hippos live in very hot places, and their skin, they don't have fur and things like that to protect them, so they definitely need it.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me, Dr. Sheila, was there any topic or fact that you wanted to include in the book that just didn't fit in?
Oh, well, I mean, when I write, I don't know how my editors do it, but they probably edit out about half the stuff. I could talk for ages and, hours about pretty much every single one of those topics in more detail. So, maybe there'll be a part 2 at some point with all the things that had to get cut out.
Yeah, that's really exciting. What's the one last word or encouragement that you'd like to share with parents who have really curious kids, who may be our next batch of scientists?
Definitely. I really like this kind of science by stealth. So picking up these kinds of books and reading with your child. Don't be afraid to admit that you didn't know that as well. Parents aren't expected to know everything. And just sitting there with a book and your child and reading out loud and sharing all this stuff together, I think that is the most powerful thing you can do. Just read with your child and you'll learn something and they'll learn something and they'll remember that for the rest of their lives.
Well, that is a perfect way for us to end this conversation. But before we go, where can people go to find out more about Are There Rainbows in Space and find out more about you, Dr. Sheila?
Yeah, so all the Penguin and Puffin websites and also, Amazon and all the places that you would buy books would have now Are There Rainbows in Space? Can you get rainbows in space, depending on where you're listening from? And then I have a website. You've already mentioned, like on Instagram and other socials, I'm Saturn Sheila, like the planet, and then SHEILA. And then I have a website called Her Place for Space. So have a look there. That's got all my books on and contact details and everything. If you've got more questions, feel absolutely welcome to get in touch.
We've had a great eye-opening time speaking to the author of Are There Rainbows in Space? Our guest has been Dr. Sheila Kanani. Dr. Sheila, thanks for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. This episode made you smile, made you think, or made you go, please consider leaving a 5-star review and sharing the link with somebody that you love. Want to invite you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, @readingwithyourkids on Instagram, and @JeadlyMagic on Twitter. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and of course our website is readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Tara Hannon. Please be sure to check out the Only Ghost series, The Only Ghost at School and The Only Ghost at Summer Camp. Also want to thank Dr. Sheila Kanani. Dr. Sheila Kanani. Please be sure to check out Are There Rainbows in Space? I want to thank my sponsors, Zivo.life, ZIVO.life. Also want to thank BigForkBrands.com. And, of course, we want to thank CozyEarth.com. When you go to those websites, please use the promo code READ to get great big discounts. Real magic happens when you support our sponsors. And when you use our promo codes, not only will you get a great deal, but we may earn a small commission. And that helps us keep spreading the joy, the books, and a little bit of everyday magic. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, El Glassman, Dante Greco. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so very much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.